We are live. Hello, hello, hello. Welcome, welcome, welcome. So excited to have you all joining us tonight for our event. My name is Alyssa Reynoso-Morris, and I work for The Word, a nonprofit organization focusing on building a publishing community that will fight for inclusivity. Our mission is to promote voices from underserved communities and diverse backgrounds, to honor the stories of those who have faced adversity and injustice, and to provide a sanctuary space where we can see ourselves in literature. To learn more about us, you can visit our website, thewordfordiversity.org. Again, that's thewordfordiversity.org. And we are super excited. I'm really, really, really excited about our session today, talking about the power of mentorship. I was actually a 2020 mentee and now have the privilege of running the program. And I am joined by two other alumni. Hello, hello, hello.
Hello.
Stefanie and Shifa, we're here to answer all of the questions you may have about the application process and the experience of working with an editor mentor and any other questions you have. Please feel free to pop them in the comments section. We will be answering them live as they come in. We'll be shifting between some of the questions that I prepared and your questions, but we will be prioritizing your questions throughout the entire time. So don't wait to the very end to type those in the comments section. All right. You ready?
Ready.
Okay. Actually, one last thing I forgot to mention is that the mentorship program applications are open until June 4th. So make sure to get your applications in. Feel free to share it with others, encourage others to apply. In previous years, we've always had about almost 300 applications come in, but we want to see that number skyrocket, and we want to see a lot of new applications in there. So please, 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 please share it. Okay, so we're going to start with some introductions. Tell me a little bit about yourself, Stefanie.
Sure. I'm Stefanie Brown. I'm a Black American picture book writer, and I'm currently working on my first middle grade novel. It's a very slow process. I'm signing in from Connecticut, and let's see, what else? I used to be a school psychologist, and I spent a lot of time reading picture books with my kids at school and using them through counseling. And I just wasn't finding enough representation in the books that I had. And so I decided to write my own, and it kind of took off from there.
Love that. Love that. Thank you for sharing that. Shifa?
I'm Shifa Saltagi Safadi. I'm a Syrian American Muslim, and yeah, I mean, similar to Stefanie, I'm a middle school teacher, and I started reading picture books to my kids, and I've always been a reader, and then I realized at some point that wow, I don't see myself in a lot of the books, and I wanted to change that for my kids and for my students, and for so many like me around the country. So I decided to start writing, and yeah, I mean, here we are years later, and really happy to be here.
Awesome. And I personally am glad you started writing. I got to read your application, and I was really excited that to read it, and that it, got to the stages that it did, and that it was picked by the mentor. So
yes,
I didn't get to read Stefanie's because I wasn't running the program yet. I know it's dope. So why don't you tell me a little bit about how you found out about the mentorship program? Because I'm always interested to learn how people find out about us.
I think I saw a Twitter post. Oh, sorry. Do you want to go ahead, Stefanie?
Go ahead. Yeah.
If I get started talking, I don't stop.
Go for it.
But so I saw a Twitter post, I think, and when I clicked it, I went to the website and just, I mean, an amazing list of mentors. And I looked at the past few years, and even this year, I mean, they're just an incredible lineup. And I just I had a chapter book manuscript that I was working on, and I was like, I had showed it to, I had just gotten agented, I believe. And I showed it to my agent, and she was like, well, it needs a little bit more work. And I was kind of wondering, how am I going to, make it better? And, just, I thought, like, what a perfect opportunity. I was like, I might as well try, because, if you don't try, then, I mean, you can't win something you don't even apply to. So, yeah. So I applied. I remember when I got the call from, no, I got an email that, that we had to send the full manuscript. And then when I got the call from Alyssa, I think I was screaming. I was so excited, because just the opportunity to work with an incredible editor, and it's truly been the best opportunity. So it was just the best process.
Love that. No, making the calls is definitely my favorite part of like the whole process. Like hearing your excitement, because I'm like excited. I'm like, I get it, because I was in your shoes like 2 years ago,
Yeah.
now 3 years ago. So yeah, I remember your call, and it was definitely a great experience.
Yeah.
That's awesome. I actually heard about the mentorship through a friend of mine. I didn't have intentions of applying, and she's kind of my friend who passes me along all the news, and she knows what's going on, and I'm always kind of out of the loop. But she sent me information about the mentorship maybe the day before, and I was like, oh yeah, I'll do it. So I applied, and it came through, fortunately.
I love that. Gotta love that friend.
You got to have one of those.
Those friends that always got the hookup.
Yep, you need one.
Love that. We have a question, so we're going to prioritize that one from Erica. I'm considering which picture book manuscript I want to submit. One is informational fiction and the other is fiction. I see that the mentors are open to fiction or nonfiction, but should I stay away from info fiction? It's a good question. I'm going to save my answer till later, but would you guys like to provide insight?
Yeah. I would say submit the one you feel stronger about, because you want to portray, like, you want to put your best foot forward. You want to really impress. And I mean, no matter how confident you are in the manuscript, there's always more to improve, so whatever you're the most confident about, the one with the most emotion and heart, connection with you, I would submit that one.
Yeah, that's my advice too.
I would echo that too. Yeah.
Yeah. When I was applying, I had like 4 manuscripts that I was working on, and it was hard to pick, but ultimately the one that I picked was the one that I felt like, okay, my passion can shine through the most, because that's what an editor mentor is going to see. Like, they don't focus. I've seen like really polished manuscripts come through that have been, you can tell that they've been through dozens of revisions. But really what an editor is looking for is that heart, the thing that they can't edit. So yes, of course. Cool. So keep popping in those questions, or as they come in, we will be prioritizing your live questions. But in the meantime, we're going to shift over to talk a little bit about what you write. So, Stephanie, you want to get us started?
Sure. I primarily write picture books, usually family narratives. My themes are usually connection, community, friendships. I do a little bit of magic realism too. And then, like I said, I just kind of shifted to, I'm writing actually a middle grade novel in verse. So,
Nice.
yeah.
Nice. Shifa?
Yeah, so I also like primarily write picture books. I have 3 published by an indie publisher, and then we have 1 contracted now with my agent to publish in 2025. And then we have a chapter book series that we worked on in the mentorship, and then a middle grade novel in verse, actually, that I also am in the process of editing. So lots of awesome stuff going on. So I just love writing.
Clearly. You're so busy, but writing across genres is so hard. So hats off to you for sure. We definitely have a picture book theme going on here, because I write picture books. I am also trying to write middle grade.
Yay.
It's definitely different. I've like started and stopped like 7 different manuscripts, and then I always get like stuck in the middle. So but I'll get there one day. I actually have my first book that came out this April Plátanos are loved. And I have 2 other books coming out. My next one comes out in October. That one's called The Bronx is My Home. And it's actually one of the ones that I worked on with my mentor through this program. So this one, The Bronx is My Home, it's like a sightseeing kind of like book, but really like at its core is teaching kids from the Bronx that they can be whatever they want to be. So that's exciting for me as someone who like grew up and was raised in the Bronx. Like so much of the narrative was really negative, and so being able to like rewrite that narrative is exciting. And my mentor Jessica was just like amazing. And then I have a second book coming out with her next year, and that one's called Gloriana Presente. So definitely like a great program to not only learn what it's like to work with an editor, but to potentially build a relationship with an editor that could potentially, not guaranteed, that's not the point of the mentorship program, but that a mentor that could potentially acquire your manuscripts in the future. All right, so we have another question. What things are editor mentors primarily looking for when they select a reader? You mentioned that the polish is not enough, emotional impact, subject matter. Yeah, so this is a good question. I'm going to jump in real quick and say we have like on the link, we have our bios of the editors, so you can like read what the editors are like into. Some editors have like something that's called the manuscript wish list that you can Google and you can look up. Definitely like don't custom tailor your submission for the editor, but you know, if there's certain things if you have like several manuscripts that you're debating between and you read their manuscript wish list, there might be something that like resonates there. But really what, in my opinion, an editor is looking for is a strong voice. That's what I've heard from previous editors, that, you know, they can help you with the developmental edits. They can help you with the plot. They can help you with, you know, like even the characterization and that kind of stuff. But like having a distinct voice is a harder thing to teach. So really tapping into that. So, passing it on to you if you have anything to add.
I feel like it's oh, sorry.
Go ahead.
I mean, I'm just thinking about the word in general, like the primary, like, you know, purpose behind it being, you know, kind of uplifting those underrepresented voices. So I feel like authenticity, like even as a reader, you know, authenticity is so important. I mean, I feel like we still need so much more. And anytime I pick up a book and I see, you know, like a mirror to myself or even a window into another culture, into another lifestyle, it's really, you know, so beautiful to me. So I think like the more authentic writers are, like it really comes through to the reader.
Sure. I feel like if you can insert some heart into whatever you're writing, if what you're writing aligns with what you're passionate about outside of writing, that's a good package and that will stand out.
Agreed. Definitely. Definitely. Love these answers. We have some more questions coming through, so we're going to keep prioritizing those. So thank you for holding this session. If selected for the mentorship, would working with an editor impact the process of querying agents at all? If querying during the mentorship period? We all actually had really interesting experiences with this. So Stefanie, do you want to get us started?
Sure. Yeah. Mine was strange. I didn't have an agent when I applied. I got accepted into the mentorship. I think 2 months later, I got an agent. And then I wouldn't say like 3 or 4 months later, I got a 2-book deal, but not with a book that I had submitted to for the mentorship. So that actually worked out really well. But it was, not a very linear path.
Yeah. And I think that encourages, like all of us had a really interesting experience, which we'll share. But one of the interesting things and important things about this mentorship program is that you can apply if you have an agent or if you don't. There are some mentorship programs that are more like prioritizing non-agented writers, and that makes a lot of sense for a lot of reasons, but we don't put that stipulation on there. So if you're currently querying agents, it's okay. It shouldn't really impact your process. The main thing that I would encourage you to do is communicate with your agent if you already have one, or if you're starting to once you're starting to hear some responses from agents, letting them know that you're a part of this mentorship program. I had applied for the mentorship program, and then literally 2 days after I got the call that I was picked, I got my agent, and I was just like, I remember calling Bunmi, who ran the program. Oh my gosh, do I need to withdraw? It's fine, it's good. So it worked out, and it was good because I was working on a different manuscript than the one that I was on sub with. So this book, Plátanos Are Love, which is my debut, came out with a different manuscript that I was on sub with my agent, and then my other 2 books that are coming out were ones that I worked on with my agent. So it opens more opportunities for you, especially if you're writing picture books or shorter form. So anything you want to add, Shifa?
Yeah, I mean, my story is similar. I had gotten agented 2 months, I think, before the program, before I got picked for the program. So when I was applying, I had sent my manuscript, my chapter book manuscript, to my agent, and she's so supportive of all my ideas and just let me know, it needs a little bit, more work on it. And I was like, yeah, I agree for sure. And when I saw the program, she was like, yeah, go ahead, you should apply. That's a great opportunity to work with an editor to improve your craft. And it was beautiful because when you have not only I communicated with my agent, but on the application I put that I had recently gotten agented, for full disclosure too, because I didn't want to, I was like, well, what if, I'm not the most deserving person, so I wanted to make sure that it's all out there. So, that all the information is with all parties. And yeah, I mean, it was wonderful because you get an opportunity, like Alyssa said, to work with an editor to, improve your craft. Even as an agented author, it's not always easy to open those doors. So
definitely,
it's wonderful that it's open to everyone.
Yeah. So apply. It shouldn't impact your process. The only way I can potentially see it being a challenge is if there's not open and honest communication with your agent. Just make sure that your agent is in the loop about it if you have one. Or what I would recommend, one other thing actually, is at the very beginning of the mentorship program, if you're planning on querying, maybe wait until that first meeting with your editor so that you can start incorporating some of that feedback. Querying is a lot of work, and it can take an emotional toll as well, that rejection. So if I hadn't gotten my agent literally 2 days after I found out that I was a mentee, I probably would have stopped querying until I had that opportunity to work with the editor, and then I would have started querying again, just because, at least for me, I'm a very emotional person, and it's hard sometimes to think creatively when you're in the query trenches and getting a lot of rejection, right? So just something to bear in mind. We don't hinder you.
Yeah.
Yeah, we don't.
You could always use it too.
Sorry, say that again.
It helps. Sorry, it helps with querying too. I feel like if you have a polished manuscript and an editor is interested in acquiring it, then you could use that even eventually when you finish with the program and be like, editor A, like this manuscript, worked with me on it, and I'm looking for an agent to take it on sub. I mean, that will only help you. So absolutely. Waiting until the manuscript is done, the process is done, is probably the best.
Yeah. So we don't put any specific stipulations, and we don't say that while you're being mentored, you're not allowed to query. But my recommendation is maybe wait, focus on the manuscript, really take in all that feedback that you get from your mentor, improve upon it as much as you can, and then use it in your query letter to show agents oh wow, if an editor was their mentor, it's probably in a better shape than otherwise it would be. So let me pay attention to this one. So yeah, good stuff. And then we have one more audience question, and then we're going to shift over to some of the ones that I have. So I know 2 meetings in 6 to 9 months is the minimum amount of meetings. Do you find that only 2 is common, or does the trend tend to be more meetings on average? Steph, do you want to take this one?
Sure. I want to say 2 rounds of feedback via email, and then 1 phone call and 1 kind of video conference with my editor. Yeah. So 2 rounds, I guess, for revisions, but then I had some just Q&A sessions with her as well.
Mm-hmm.
Shifa?
Yeah, I mean, it depends. I think me and the mentors of my year actually had a WhatsApp group. So we had a lot of conversations with each other about kind of the process. And I think it depends on each mentor, each mentee, and the needs of the manuscript. But about 2, I think, is common. I also had 2 Zooms, 1 introductory and 1 to talk about the feedback. And I also had 2 rounds of feedback. So, and my chapter book manuscript is small. I think PB manuscripts are smaller. So you probably could get more, but I think for like the longer manuscripts, that it depends on how long the editor gets to get through it and how long your revisions take to send back. So I assume it varies, I think, and especially in the current industry, I think it a lot of times, with the busyness nature of everything, I think giving grace and being understanding when sometimes some editors maybe might not be able to, and so I think a lot of my fellow mentees had different experiences, and yeah, I mean, it depends, I guess.
That was going to be my answer. It depends. It depends on your manuscript. It depends on your genre. It depends on the mentor. So I was also picture book. I did meet with my mentor a little bit more than 2 times during that time because my manuscript was shorter. The longer manuscripts, like the adult, the YA, they tend to be 2 sessions because it does take longer to read the entire manuscript. And the editors do this on a volunteer basis. They are volunteering to be editors because they are amazing, wonderful people. They are not getting paid to do this. In future years, we are hoping to maybe potentially do that. But as it stands right now, the success of this program is because of the hard work of our volunteers. And editors are really busy people, really busy. So we made that 2 meeting minimum requirement, and sometimes it's a little more, sometimes it's a little less, but it really just depends on the mentor, their workload, the genre of your manuscript, the length of your manuscript, the state of your manuscript, all of those things. So good question. All right, would love to hear more about your experience working with your editor and some of the craft lessons you learned about revision. You want to take this one, Stefanie?
Sure. I think the 2 biggest lessons I learned in the process had to do with pacing. So I had some pacing issues where I think I'm just even in the session, I'm going to give an answer and it's going to be 2 sentences. That's how I write. I don't elaborate. So she's like, you can take your time with this. You can elaborate on your answers. And that was really helpful just to get that freedom to kind of just settle in a little bit and know where I could take more space and use more word count. And then the second part, I was really working through creating a story arc, specifically the emotional arc. I am such a concepts person. I can come up with the best concept, but that's not a story. So she really helped me to okay, what is the reason for the character's action, and what are they trying to get? What is their motivation? And helping me to flesh out that part of the story as well. And that's what I learned in the sessions with my editor. I've been able to carry through to other picture books too. So it was really valuable.
Awesome. Thank you. Thank you. Shifa?
Yeah, I mean, my editor was amazing as well. I learned so much. Like, it was my first time to like receive an editorial letter and try to work on revisions. So it was really good practice for me to work on like how to incorporate revision into the manuscript, because sometimes you can get amazing editing tips and then not know how to like, change the writing. So it was really good practice for me to kind of learn that process of revision. And also, like, I have like a really maybe unique story, but like with my chapter books. So there's in chapter books, you have like each chapter book has to have a story, and then there has to be something tying the series together. So that's what was really missing for my series. Like, I knew what I wanted it to be about. I knew what each of the books would be about, but I just was struggling with that aspect. So my editor just kind of like, through her notes and through our discussions, we like hit on the perfect series, like how to tie it all together. And like, it just like inspired a spark in my head to just, kind of do the revision. So it was really, really helpful. Like, truly my manuscript was so changed, and it was the best experience.
Awesome. Yeah. I'm going to kind of echo that. My manuscript was completely and totally different by the end of the experience. The manuscript I submitted was nothing in comparison to the final product, but in a good way. I think what was the most valuable lesson for me with working with an editor, other than like the obvious of like knowing what it's like working with an editor, seeing what an editorial letter actually looks like what is that, because it is different from working with like a critique group or a critique partner. But I think what was the most important was my editor was very like, she was asking good questions that helped me get to like the heart and the core of the story, right? So when I was making the changes, I was able to really ask myself like, okay, so I'm making this change because I agree it's going to make it stronger, because this is what I'm actually trying to say, right? Um, my editor, it was a great experience because she was not prescriptive. She wasn't like, you have to change it to this, you have to do this, you have to do that. It was more of like asking me good questions that I was able to reflect on to really like take the story to a whole nother level. And I'm so grateful and appreciative, because now I ask myself similar questions when I'm working on my other manuscripts. Like, wait, what are you trying to say here? Like, is this really what you want to say? So yeah, it's a great experience working with an editor, knowing what that is like, but it changes your craft and how you write and how you revise. All right. So keep these questions coming in. We appreciate them. We're going to shift over to some of the questions that I have. I feel like we answered some of them already. So as I mentioned, the applications for the 2023 mentorship program are currently open. What is some advice that you would like to share with current applicants that are applying for the mentorship program? Stefanie?
Sure. So you mean in actually filling out the application?
Yes, filling out the application.
Okay. I would say use all your storytelling skills. Use those in your application. So if you have outside experiences that kind of support what you're writing, that's a good story that you're telling. Yeah, you want that emotional arc, really. Like you want to put some heart in it. Yeah, don't just list facts, but create a full story.
Yeah. Absolutely. Yeah. I echo that. I mean, there's a place in the application. So it's anonymous, I think, this year as well, right? Because that's how it was last year. So
Yes.
you have to basically, so you basically have to write like a personal statement without giving away too many details. So, I use the opportunity to, like Stefanie said, add heart to it, explain why I wrote the story, why it means so much to me, why I applied, and how important it is for me to get that story out there. So treat it like a writing masterpiece itself and follow the directions. I remember there were quite a few directions, and I remember I kept looking, making sure I was following. I like multiple times I was like, I don't want to mess my whole chance up by not following directions. So yeah.
That was what I was going to say. Read the instructions. please, 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 please. The application has a short answer section where there's 4 questions and then the manuscript. I would hate to have to disqualify your application because you didn't follow the directions. The easiest ways to get disqualified are by putting your name on the application. That's number one. There are some things that people did that didn't follow the directions 100%, but we didn't hold those against them too much. The main one is the name. The reason being because every application is reviewed by 3 readers. And then the average score of the 3 readers is taken into account. And then the individuals with the highest scores get the top 3 get sent over to the editor mentor. And then the editor mentor picks who they want to work with based on those 3 applications. In order for it to be fully anonymous and for there not to be any issues of like, well, bias. My application was, we just can't have the name on it. It's completely blind copied. So please follow the instructions. That's number one. Number 2 is if you have any questions about the application before you hit submit, because if you submit it, you cannot make any changes after. If you have any questions, reach out to us. Literally, like I am checking the mentorship email like every day, basically. And if you have any questions, I will happily answer them for you. So if anything is unclear, if you are unsure about anything, reach out before hitting submit. And then the last thing is submit it on time. Boo boo honey, listen, if you do not submit it on time, there's nothing I can do for you. So, and the reason is because we're on a timeline. You know, we need to keep the process going. And I know life happens. I get it. But it's also a lesson of how it is to work with an editor. Like your editor is going to potentially give you deadlines. And we want to make sure that you can do that. You can hang. We want to make sure you can read instructions, follow instructions, and submit an application. If you can't read the instructions of the application, maybe you're not ready to work with a mentor yet. Not to be mean, but just in full transparency. So read the instructions, submit it on time, and contact me if you have any questions. All right. So next question is kind of like the second part. So you did the thing, you did everything you were supposed to do, you actually got selected to be one of the mentees. What is some advice that you can share with those that, like, if you're awarded the opportunity to work with the editor? Shifa, you want to take this one first?
Yeah. Just kind of like let the editor, I feel like, take the lead. So we were connected by email. So I remember like kind of, asking my editor, okay, how would you like to do this best? Because they are on a volunteer basis. So, just asking her what worked for her. And so then, that way I was new to it too. Like, so that way I was able to kind of like, know what was going to happen. So we set a date to talk. And after, we met each other, then after that, she got the manuscript, send me edits. And then, kind of just, was like, okay, let's meet when you have a revision. And then we just kind of, I was very open with her about any questions I had. We had a Zoom call after I went over the edit letter to see if like we could just bounce around ideas to make it better. And then I remember asking her questions about the industry in general. So just, kind of, the editors are doing this because they care. Like my editor was amazing. She truly cared. And I felt that. And I was able to ask her, any of the questions I had and make the manuscript better. And then I asked her if I could, send it to her again, have her take another look. And she was like, yeah. So just kind of, reach out with your editor with any questions you have, ask what their timeline is like, give grace if there's delays, and just, kind of try your best to put the best foot forward, because like these connections that you make, they're important because it could open future doors too for future books and future manuscripts. So that's kind of my main advice.
Yeah, I would echo all of that. If you can, and just being respectful of the editor's time, most of your interactions are focused around one specific manuscript, but if you can, I'd really take advantage in any publishing questions or just industry questions in general. I would try and get those answered, whether it's like a video. Most likely a video call would be good for that, or a phone call as opposed to email. But yeah, take advantage while you have the expertise right in front of you.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for sharing that. And when part of what makes this mentorship program different from others is that you're paired with an editor. Most other mentorship programs pair you with a writer. And while they can answer some of those publishing related questions because they've gone through the process, they have gone through the process as the writer. They have gone through the process as the author. This mentorship program gives you the opportunity to like learn directly from an editor. So yes, have all of those like publishing industry related questions ready when you meet with your editor. Thank you so much. That's gold right there. So follow-up question that I have is, did you go into like the mentorship program with clear goals, or did you kind of like go with the flow, and why? Whoever wants to answer.
Yeah, I had goals for sure. I had like a notebook and I had questions, publishing questions. And then I also had all the questions about my manuscript that I was wondering about. So like, I knew that I wanted to get this submission ready, and I knew I wanted to, get it ready for, an editor to look at. So I had all the notes, all my questions, and I laid them all out, and it just made the process so much smoother because I feel like I was ready to listen, and I, had all my concerns out there, so I could just, focus on the revision process. So
awesome. What about you, Stefanie?
This is kind of funny. When I got my agent, I had 4 manuscripts I wanted to show her, and she went through all of them. And 3 of them, she was like, "Oh, I love this. This is like right in my genre, and these are so great." And the one that I liked the most, she was like, "That's okay." So my goal was to make her love that manuscript, and that was the manuscript that I got to have the mentorship with. So
that's awesome.
Yeah.
Did she end up loving
it? And eventually she did love it. Yes.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Then goal achieved.
Yes.
Perfect. I went in to the mentorship. I already knew by the time that I got my mentor, I had an agent. So that was good. That was my original goal when I was applying. I wanted it to get it to the point that it was query ready. But then the main thing is I wanted it to get acquired. And so I was really open to all of the feedback. And my recommendation is yes. While you are in the mentorship program, say yes to everything. Even if it might sound weird, like just try it, especially if it's a shorter work, because you won't know. I remember my editor saying, try to write it in third person and see. So I did that. Ultimately, we went with the first person version because the voice was stronger there, but there was a lot that I was able to add to the story from that third person revision, which would not have come up organically. So my original knee-jerk reaction was like, right? So take that, deal with your feelings, and then try it. See how it works. And ultimately, it's a good practice in editing, but obviously, if it really goes against the core of the story for some reason, have a conversation with your editor about I'm not sure about this and this is why. What do you think? And then maybe you can come up with an alternative solution. So definitely ask questions and go in with those clear objectives, but be flexible. Flexibility is the name of the game. So cool. We have another audience question here, which I can take this one. Is it disqualifying to note you won a specific Lit Mag short story competition without naming the story? No, you are good. You can mention that you won the competition, just don't name the story. And obviously like don't put your name on the application. So that is absolutely fine. We want to see that you, like, if you have experience in the industry, if you have won other awards, if you've won other mentorship programs, we definitely want to hear about that, and we want to know that. All right. So we're at like the 15-minute mark. We have 15 minutes left. Shifa has to head out for this one, but Stefanie and I are still here, and we will be here for another 15 minutes to answer any other questions that you have.
Thank you for having me.
No,
I'm gonna go.
Your insights. We appreciate you. Bye. All right, so we have another one here. Are there any suggestions about how to title our submission? There are no instructions on this since we cannot use our name. I assume our manuscript title. So let me actually get back to you on that one. Can you email mentorship at theword.com? I'm going to put the email address in there. It should be in the instructions. There's an alternative title, but if not, email us and I will get back to you on that. Thank you for that question. Give me 1 second. There should be like a sample application and information on that, but email mentorship at thewordfordiversity.org with that one. Okay, so we're going to keep the party going. So Stefanie, you did kind of already share like what you were struggling with the most before the mentorship program, and how like your mentor helped you kind of like work through that. Did you feel like you could, like you were able to get help in like all of the areas that you were struggling?
I did. And you had mentioned before that your editor, she was really good at asking you questions and guiding you there. So my mentor did the same for me. So I felt even better when I came to like a resolution on my manuscript, because it was my idea. And she just was really great at asking me questions so that I could get there. And the same thing as I go to the next manuscript, I'm trying to think of what questions to ask myself.
Right. Definitely. I'm like, what would Jessica ask me? Like,
exactly. Yeah.
For sure.
You end up talking to yourself.
Yeah, exactly. And so out of curiosity, like how would you rate your level of confidence before starting the program and then like after?
Yeah, I think for what I said, just that she kind of empowered me to get there with her questions. I felt really good. And I think that was on previous manuscripts that I was polishing. I relied on a lot of critique partners and a lot of input there. This is probably one of the first ones where I felt like, yeah, this is me. So I felt very confident. Yeah.
Good. Awesome. I love that. Yeah, for me, I applied for the mentorship program and I had already gotten one mentorship program under my belt. Another mentorship program I would encourage for those that qualify is the Las Musas mentorship program. It's not with an editor. That is a disclaimer. You're working with a published author, but it gave me that first like nudge of like, ooh, okay, maybe I have something here, like it really helps like mentally, because publishing is there's just so much rejection in it. Mm-hmm. And so it was great to like, it was the first time that I was like, ooh, someone like gets it. Someone, thinks my manuscript is worthy, and then with time you learn how to like dismantle those like beliefs. But it was crucial to give me the confidence to even apply for the mentorship program with the Word, because it did felt really intimidating to like apply for a mentorship program with an editor. But I'm glad that I did it, because it working with Jessica changed not only like my writing life, but it like changed my life overall, my publishing journey.
I think it can be intimidating just thinking about working with an editor, but it's like a low stakes scenario too. So when you go for the real deal, it's so helpful to have that in your back pocket that, oh, I kind of know what the interactions are and what the process is at this point. So that works really well too.
Absolutely. And like the other thing to think about is the editors that are a part of this program, they volunteered.
Yes.
Right? Like these are editors,
they want to help you.
Exactly. Like they want to help you. And being on the other side of it, like I was a mentee in 2020 and now like I run the program. Like I know that and I can attest to that these editors really, really care and they really, really want to help you. So it doesn't feel as intimidating now, but I remember when I was applying, I was just like, oh, I don't know. So if you have any of those feelings or whatever, just put them to the side, say not today, and apply, follow the instructions.
Sorry for my working dog.
So your dog is he's like, yes.
She agrees.
He agrees. It's like you have to apply. Okay, cool. And if you can share with others like why this mentorship program was important in your journey, that would be great.
Yeah, it definitely helped me develop as a writer. And just in general, I think like being able to spotlight more marginalized authors is so important. I had this strange conversation the other day. I was in a scenario where I was the only person of color in the room, and some women were talking about The Little Mermaid that just came out, and all the opinions out there were in this conversation.
Oh, I bet.
Yeah, and then they realized that there's this brown lady standing there, so like, oh, what do you think? And I was talking about how just I have 2 little girls, and how nice it is to see representation out there. But also there are so many stories within our communities that aren't being highlighted and that aren't being told. So I'd love to see our stories. I don't want to just see like backloading characters, but our stories come out there too. And the woman's response to me was like, oh, we just need more people to do that. And I was so shocked. I was like, no, I can 30 of my friends are writers and we have stories that we want to tell. And so it's so important that we have opportunities like this that can push forward our stories and that are advocating for new voices.
Absolutely. Oh, I love that. I love that. Absolutely. I mean, it was interesting when I really started like focusing on like wanting to get published. My first mentor through Las Musas, which I also see we have a Musas fan here, is she told me, publishing it's like 80% preparation, 20% luck.
Yeah.
And so when it came to applying for the mentorship programs, when it came to, creating agents and then going on sub, like so much of it is out of our control.
The opportunity has to be there.
The opportunities need to be there. And now being on the other end and like being able to know that this opportunity has led to dozens actually of manuscripts being published, is incredible. It's not obviously the end goal. Like that's not how we're determining success with this program, right? Like the main goal of the program is for the manuscript to improve, right? Improve maybe so that it's ready for agents, maybe so that it's ready for an editor, but potentially like having it acquired makes a big difference because we are writing our stories, we are creating. It's just we don't get the same visibility sometimes.
Totally. And I think there are so many good writers out there, but that doesn't like qualify you for entering the industry. It's like very intentional work that needs to happen to get you to cross that barrier. And you don't know what you don't know. So it's helpful when somebody can sit down and tell you what you don't know.
Absolutely. And like with my agent, fortunately, I have a great relationship with my agent and we do our research and really like when we're going on sub are really intentional of like, who are we applying for? Like,
Yeah.
we do that research because there is a lot of like rejection. So we
Mhm.
are really like strategic about who we are submitting to. And that's something that I encourage everyone to do down the line. But I think this part of the reason why this mentorship program is so beautiful is because, again, like all of the mentors are volunteers. So
Mhm.
they volunteered to read your story because they also agree with us that there's a need for our stories, that there's room for our stories, that
Mhm.
there's space. And one thing that I've heard from a lot of other mentees is that their mentors actually encourage them to lean into their culture more,
Mhm.
to lean into those experiences more. And that's how like it upped the voice, you know? So oftentimes you hear like like writers being like, oh, I don't know if I should, that's too much. Oftentimes what I've heard from these editors are like, more, give me more, give me more, give me more.
Mhm.
And I wanted to share that here because as you are applying more, they want more.
Yeah. I think the more specific we hear this saying a lot, but the more specific you are, the more universal it becomes.
Yes,
Yeah.
exactly.
Yeah.
Awesome. All right, so we're at that. We have like 4 minutes left. If you have any other last burning questions, now is the time to pop them in the chat. Thank you all so much for joining us. Thank you so much, Stefanie, for your time.
Good
Thanks
luck,
for
everyone.
applying for the mentorship program. Thanks for carving out the time to speak with us now and answer these questions. We really, really appreciate you and are super excited about your upcoming stories. Do you want to like plug in what
I have a few years before anything comes out. My first one is winter 2025. It's called My Heart Speaks Kriolu. My mom is Cape Verdean American, so it's inspired by that culture and our culture, and I'm excited about that one. And I have a few more after that, but none of them are announced.
Okay, so
Yeah.
there's more that are not announced. So
Yes,
you all have to
definitely.
go and follow Stefanie on social media so that you can stay up to date with all of Stefanie's amazing future news. And I know you're working on a website, right?
I am, yes. I'm
Okay.
slow to that, but yes.
All right.
Soon
Cool,
to
cool,
come.
cool. Very, very cool. So yes, we have some congratulations
Thanks.
on here.
Yeah, thank you.
Awesome. So thank you all again. Thank you for joining. If you have any questions, please email. I will be checking during this entire process. The applications are due June 4th. June 4th. So make sure you apply. It's a great opportunity. And if you are not able to apply for whatever reason, please share it. Please share it. We do this every year. So if you're not able to get your manuscript ready in time, like please share it with someone else that would be able to apply for the opportunity, and then keep working on that manuscript so that it's ready for the following year. Yeah, awesome. Thank you all. We will see you. I hope to see all of your applications soon, but without your names.
There you go.
Thank you, Stefanie.
Thank you, Alyssa.